to just have it up already, so that this way. Okay. Okay. All right. Welcome to Raising Strong-Willed Kids Summit. My name is Andrea Milioti, and I'm your host. And today's guest is Dr. Lara Honos-Web, and she is a clinical psychologist licensed in California. She's also the author of 6 Super Skills for Executive Functioning, tools to help teens improve focus, stay organized, and reach their goals. In addition to that, she also wrote Brain Hacks, The Gift of ADHD, The Gift of ADHD Activity Book, The Gift of ADHD, Adult ADD, the ADHD Workbook for Teens, Listen to Depression. Her work has been featured in USA Today, Newsweek, The Wall Street Journal, US News and World Report, the Chicago Tribune, and many more. Dr. Lara completed a 2-year postdoctoral research fellowship at University of California and has been an assistant professor for graduate students. She has published 26 scholarly articles, and her website is www.addisagift.com. I love that.
Oh,
I love
thank you.
that. Welcome. Thank you, Dr. Lara.
I'm glad to be here with you, Andrea.
Awesome, thank you. I'm so glad to have you. The first is going to be like a two-part question. Basically,
Mhm.
for one, how you came up with these super skills for executive
Mhm.
functioning. What are they?
Okay, yeah. Well, the way that I came up with it is that I, work with clients that have executive functioning problems, not always ADHD, but mostly ADHD. And so at the end of every session, I ask clients, what was the most helpful and what was the least helpful? And so over the years, I kind of kept a list of what people were repeatedly saying were the most helpful interventions. And I came up with what I call the top 38 list of helpful interventions. But you can imagine that that's quite, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. And so over the years, I realized that I could kind of condense them into these 6 super skills. And the first one is finding gifts. And just consistently, people realize that when you start to focus on what their strengths are, that helps them with their motivation and even to pay attention. And then the second super skill is setting goals. And as you know, learning how to plan, whether for kids or teens or even adults, by
Mhm.
setting those goals, you are building this ability to plan for the future. And then once you set that goal, the third super skill is chunking, which means what is the smallest next step that I can take? And the fourth super skill is building motivation. And that has a lot to do with self-efficacy, this feeling that you believe you can do it. And also, what are the benefits of, like, it could be doing your homework or getting a part-time job or whatever that might be. And then the fifth super skill is managing mood. And this is just a lot of tools that help a person to gain some distance from their intense emotions so that they
Right.
can manage them and focus. And then the last super skill is finding focus. And there is a whole science about what increases attention and what decreases attention. For example, a little bit of physical exercise can boost our attention. Taking breaks will restore our attention. And some of the other ones are sleep is the biggest brain builder. People have to make sure that they're getting their sleep. And another one is limiting technology. As we know, that can be very distracting.
Yes, definitely. Oh my God, I have my youngest. He's 20. He'll be 21 this year, and he was diagnosed with ADHD and ODD when he was 7. That computer is like, I've learned over time through a lot of education, but it's like I always wonder, like, you focus so well on that. I think it's that hyper focus thing, where they,
Mhm.
tend to like what they like. But a little bit backing, just to kind of touch base on a little bit of all of them. The first one you say about finding gifts.
Yes, yeah.
Why elaborate a little bit more? Why would that be like the first?
Okay, well, one of the reasons is that our motivation is directly tied to our, what we call self-efficacy. And that is just a big word that means, I feel like I can actually do this. I can succeed at this. And when a kid will not move forward or is procrastinating, often they're thinking, I can't do this. And so one of the first things you can do is ask, when was a time you had success with this? Or what are some qualities of you, what are some strengths that you have that allow you to have success with this? What are 3 reasons that you can do this? You begin to ask these questions of, when's the time you overcame a challenge? So that you're building those strengths and helping them to find the reasons why they can do it. And you can imagine that, how would you feel motivated to do something if you just didn't think you could do it?
True. That's true. Where would you
Mhm.
find that if you just don't believe? Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So it's helping them to dig out and to find, like think back, like when, when was that motivation there? Because you know that there's always something, there's always a good thing that came out. So
Mhm.
it's about pulling it out. That's a really good point. Just to touch a little bit on, what would you say is like, just like going to the second one? That was, what was that? The second one?
Setting goals.
Okay.
Yeah. And so setting goals is as simple as, like, what do you want for yourself? And you can talk about, what do you want your grades to look like? What do you want
Right.
to be when you grow up? And even setting goals in your, what are your social goals? Do you want to make more friends? Do you want to have a caring dating relationship? Do you want to join some clubs and meet people with similar interests? And then also health goals. Do you want to play a sport? Do you want to get physically fit? Do you want to, um, have a healthy diet? And so even with kids and adults, and teens even, you can ask them and they will be able to find some things they want for themselves. And what this does is it takes the parents and the kids and the teens out of this control battle, because then you say, oh, okay, if you want to get good grades, or you want to go to this school, or you want to go get a job in this company, then what you really need to do is get some help with his homework. And then it doesn't become, you have to do this because I'm telling you to. You say, well, you have these goals for yourself, and this is what you need to do to get your own goals.
Awesome. That's good. All right. Awesome. And then just to a little bit of when we were talking about the procrastination,
Mm-hmm.
how can this, like using this, like really help kids with procrastination? Oh my God, I have that. My 20-year-old now procrastinates
Mm-hmm.
on everything, literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like just so, and I know it's like, I mean, it's like, get out, like, how do you, how can this help? Like, what are some of, like, how you can support that and get them over that? And
Yeah. So can you give me a specific example of the type of thing he procrastinates on? Like one example?
oh my God, let's say something like, okay, all right, going back, he was in college and he actually was in a local community and he did a year and a half, but he stopped. He's actually working a good job where he's working full time right now. But when he was in school and he would have like an assignment and
Mm-hmm.
something that, and the teacher would give it to him, and I'm like, when, oh, and he's coming, what is it that? He's like, I have some, it's due tomorrow. And wait, did you do it? I said, that's the problem. I mean, he knew it had to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And the last minute, he's like, it's due tomorrow, Ma. But how long, how long you knew? Like
Mm-hmm.
literally a month, 2 months. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter, I keep reminding him. And yes, I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then the last damn minute, he's like,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
he
So
was
this
like
is,
that in school too,
yeah.
in high school and everything, same thing.
Okay, so that is very, very common and typical. And so one of the things is that you can begin to teach them, and it's not going to be helpful in that last minute. I will teach you some things in the last minute, but you want to have them develop this habit that as soon as they get an assignment, they preview the assignment and they read through, what is this assignment? And the reason is because sometimes you have to read a book before you do the assignment. Sometimes you have to read some articles. And so, okay, so then what you do is you say, I previewed the assignment. And it's due in 3 or 4 weeks. And this week, all I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of this material that I have to read. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a study group with some other people in the class and ask them, how they're doing it and see if we can support each other. Because sometimes having accountability by setting up a study group, they'll say, oh, I'm doing this. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know we had to do that. Where did you find that? And so you'll have these conversations where you're getting some accountability with some other people. Now, in those moments where it's kind of the last minute, some things that people can find helpful is to, is to chunk it down. Like, what's the first step? Well, I have to come up with the ideas. And some
Right.
people find voice writing, like on Google Docs, they have
Oh,
voice writing,
yeah.
and where you can just talk and it will kind of type out your ideas for you. And it's not perfect, but it's a good way to get started because you can talk out all your ideas and then you have like a really rough version of what you need to do. And then the second step is to go through and edit that. And then, the third step is to read the assignment and make sure you've actually, fulfilled the requirements of the assignment. So you see what you're doing is smaller chunks, because just to be able to write a complete paper in one sitting is pretty overwhelming for anyone.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're breaking it down because instead of I guess what causes the procrastination too is it's they're looking at this whole thing.
Mhm.
And like you
Mhm.
said, whether ADHD or not ADHD, it comes, it's like very overwhelming for
Mhm.
anybody to look at that. So when you take it and you break it up in different chunks, it makes it easier because you just focus on, okay, this is what I have to do, and that's it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then
Yes.
yeah.
So
And
it's a lot more motivating to say, I'm just going to preview the assignment, because that doesn't ask a lot of you, but then it prepares you to do the next steps. And the other thing that happens about these small steps is that sometimes once you get started, you'll keep going. And you're doing this ahead of time if you adopt the strategy of these small steps. And so it gives you a chance to solve some problems that you might need. And again, setting up a study group or an accountability partner is always going to be helpful.
yeah, definitely. I get that. Yes, definitely. I like that. Now can this help like kids and teens like manage that technology thing that we were talking about? Like instead of becoming like a lot of parents think, oh my God, they're so addicted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
how
Yeah. So one of the things that you can help with is, and this is going to be a slower process in the sense of, what are the benefits of all this time on technology? And so sometimes kids will say, oh, it's fun, it's stimulating, it's how I connect with other people if they're playing video games. And then you say, okay, well, what are the costs of all this time? And then they'll say, well, I play video games and then I actually leave my homework until after. And then I usually only have an hour to do all my homework and I have to rush through it and I don't feel motivated. Because going from video games to homework, you're going from a lot of stimulation to very little stimulation and requiring a lot of attention. And that makes it very hard to pay attention. So one thing they can do is use the video games as a reward for completing some of their homework. And so because what they can realize is that the cost of the procrastination is they don't have the time or the attention to do their work. And then you can help them to use some, kind of these conversations with your future self. Okay, so meaning, when you play video games all day and then tomorrow when you show up to class and you don't have your homework done, what advice would your future self give you? And so this is helping them to plan. And they said their future self would say, get your work done first and play video games later. And so it's another tool where they're giving this advice to themselves and it doesn't become a control battle that their future self is saying, hey, just get this done. Think of all the rewards, you'll get a good grade. And then when you're playing video games, you won't have it hanging over your head that you've got all these other things you should be doing.
interesting. That's good advice. That's something you wouldn't even think about. Very good.
Mhm.
I like that. So like, all right, so going back, like with the six super, we were talking about the first and the second.
Mhm.
Let's just go back and like just break down like a little bit, maybe just touch up maybe like
Okay.
an example or something just for some people who maybe, you know.
Yeah. So the first one was finding gifts, and then we
Right.
talked about setting goals, and then we just talked about chunking. And then the third one is boosting motivation. And
Mhm.
so some of the ways that you can boost motivation is to say to yourself, progress, not perfection. Because sometimes people don't get started because they want to hit a home run. And so it's like hitting a single or a double instead of a home run, which means just get started. And so some of the self-talk could be just get started, do one thing at a time. How good will I feel once I get started? That can be some of the self-talk. Because I think you can also say to yourself, focus on completion, because there's so many times where they're thinking about how much they just don't feel like doing it. And so you're shifting that focus to how good will I feel when I complete this? So those are some of the self-talk. But for many people, it's really about just make some progress, just take the next step, that can be one way to boost the motivation, and to think about how good they will feel once they get started. And then the fifth super skill is managing mood. And so if you're feeling very anxious or you have intense emotions,
Right.
it's going to interfere with your attention. And so one of the ways that you can manage a mood is to gain some distance from it. So you can put a label on it. You could say, you know what, I'm really anxious about this assignment. And then part of the way you can manage it is to say, you know what, I can feel anxious and keep moving forward. I don't have to stop just because I feel anxious. And so using these tools, also one I call changing the channel, is to remember a time when you felt happy, or to remember a time when you felt grateful, or to remember a time when you were excited about the future. Because as you change your mood, then it's hard to get started and to do things and to focus when you're ruminating about negative things. But if you shift the focus to the positive, we do know that that helps increase your ability to focus and stay motivated. So we have to do that. And then the last one is finding focus. And
Which is a big one.
yes, so a big takeaway from this is that exercise boosts our attention, and it doesn't have to be the same amount of exercise it takes to get in shape. It can be going for a short walk. It could be bouncing a ball against a wall. It could be small things, but it really allows us to focus more. And so when you talk about the video games, it's related to this, because in video games are going to make it harder to pay attention. But if a person were to go outside and go for a very short walk, it would boost their attention, because nature also boosts your attention,
Mhm.
because it invites the state of unfocus, which restores your attention, and the exercises. So you see, it's a difference of the choices you make. If you're choosing a little bit of exercise and a little bit of nature, you're going to boost your attention. If you choose a video game, you're going to make it harder to pay attention. So one of the other things is, of course, we mentioned the happiness, that having a positive mood increases attention. And so that's the question I said before about changing the channel. What makes me happy? What makes me feel secure? What am I grateful for? Just asking yourself those questions is going to give you a positive mood, which will make it easier to pay attention. And so an obvious one is that multitasking is a myth. You cannot be goofing around on your phone and doing your homework at the same time. That
Yeah.
it depletes your attention and it makes you more likely to make errors.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh my God, that is such a like this multitasking thing. Yeah, it's like I know. Like I always tell, sometimes you can't. One thing. You know, it just that multitasking thing. It just you get more overwhelmed with it. I think, right? And it's like,
Yes.
yeah, it's really crazy. Oh my God, it's really good advice. That's really good advice. I think these super skills are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Um,
Andrea.
Yeah, awesome, Lara. What would you like want the audience to take away from this whole thing and to, you know, learn from everything here?
Well, I think underneath all of this is this idea when we talk about executive functioning that people say, I can't pay attention or I'm not motivated. These super skills show us that you can take a growth mindset. You can increase your attention. You can increase your motivation. You can increase your ability to regulate your mood. And so having this growth mindset through these super skills, it really, again, takes away this idea that, I'm just not good at it. Even these things you can make progress on. And again, progress, not perfection. You just have to begin to start somewhere and make some small steps with these. I think the other thing that I would say about it is that not only in terms of recognizing that you can build these skills. When we talk about skill building, some people think of it as like discipline, and they have a negative association to discipline. So what I recommend is that you realize that building skills increases your pleasure in life. It's not a painful thing, it's a pleasurable thing because you'll have the more freedom of choice. If you build these super skills, you'll be more likely to get your goals. And as you get your goals, you'll be able to achieve success, you'll achieve more confidence, and those are all positive emotions. And so trying to connect building skills, not with discipline or hard work, but getting what I want out of life, getting my goals, making the things happen that I want to happen. So meeting my own needs. We want to really connect these super skills with pleasure, not like this kind of taskmaster discipline.
Awesome. One more thing also, I just want to mention, like, I know it's great for teens and everything, but
Mhm,
like, you have like younger kids, like elementary school kids. Is
mhm.
this good? These super skills good to use with them as well?
Absolutely. I mean, and they're very simple, with even with kids, just to say, to help them find their strengths. And that can be as simple as asking them questions like, was there a time today when you were a good listener? And then they have to search and say, maybe they, were not listening a lot of times, but there were some times when they were listening. And they might say, yeah, actually, the teacher said I did a good job on this. Okay, was there a time today when you were imaginative? And many kids are imaginative, and in fact, it kind of is what is causing them problems. Is they're, daydreaming instead of focusing, and they
Right.
may say, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about this story of that I wanted to write, and all these," and they'll tell you examples of being imaginative. And you can say, when have been times when you were cheerful, and they'll
Right.
tell you about, and it's that same tool of changing the channel. You're directing their attention to times when they were using their strengths, and then they begin to develop this language for what they're good at. And again, I do think that is the first step and the fundamental step to all of the other super skills. You have to believe that you're capable of succeeding to get everything else, the motivation and setting those goals.
Yep, that is so true. You do, because if you don't believe it, it's not, you have to really deep down believe that, that yes, I can do it. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Great advice. Really, really good. Um, where now people can actually they can find well your website,
Mhm.
www.add is a gift.
.com.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's so great
Mhm.
because I always say that. I think it's not a disability. You know what?
Mhm.
Like my son was, my daughter has extreme anxiety. She's 24 and ADHD. And I was actually I lived my whole life not knowing. I was
Mm.
diagnosed at like 50, about 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And once it just put so much my whole life in perspective. I really started to understand and I didn't even know, and but I say it's my superpower. It really
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, and I do, and I when I say ADD is a gift, I also don't mind to minimize the real significant challenges. But I do invite that by finding those strengths, you do build up the motivation and the attention and the positive mood that's all going to trickle down and support your success in life.
definitely. Where else can everybody find you? So you got your website, you have, can they email you, or is it on, or there's a contact, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, another place is I have a Facebook author page, which is
Okay,
also called The Gift of ADHD. That's another place.
okay,
Um,
awesome.
yeah. And by email at drhonesweb@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. And yes, great. That's awesome. And I know there's something else I want. Oh, so those are all the places I can find you. And there was something else that I want. Oh, a gift. I think you offer the viewers a free gift.
Yes, I have a video for free, and it's a 20-minute video on the 6 super skills for executive functioning. And I have given you a link to that. And
Yes,
also, it's also available on my website, addisagift.com, but you have the link, so they should be able to get it right from
they
your
can.
program. Yeah.
Exactly. They'll be able to click on that. I think that would be a great thing for everybody to watch. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. This has been
Yes,
fun.
yes, it has been. Thank you for being part of it. And you have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye bye.